Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor for me to be here at our commencement today addressing my fellow philosophy majors, their families, and the Tufts Philosophy faculty, many of whom I've had the pleasure of taking classes with over the past 4 years. I remember about 3 weeks ago when Professor Kelly sent me an email, and she said something like this. She said, "Dylan, we would be honored if you would come and give a talk at commencement and bestow upon us all of the wisdom that you have no doubt received by studying philosophy at Tufts University over the past 4 years of your life. We'll give you about 5 minutes." And I said, "Perfect. That sounds like plenty of time." Now, I wanted to do something very different than your standard feel-good, congratulations on finishing college, we've done it sort of graduation speech. I wanted to do something a bit more substantive than that. In particular, I want to suggest to you 2 points, which I think everyone, but particularly recent college graduates and particularly philosophy majors, should bear in mind going forward. The first point is this: beware of the philosopher's problem. This is a term I first heard in a book called Consciousness Explained by our own Tufts professor, Daniel Dennett, and he defines the philosopher's problem as this: mistaking a failure of imagination for an insight into the nature of reality. Let me put this to you another way. A lot of philosophers seem to be under the impression that they can just sit back in their armchairs and think about things, and if they think about things very, very hard, they can discover important and necessary truths about the way the world works. But here's the thing. Unless you're a mathematician or logician, this is not how knowledge is produced. Knowledge is not produced from an armchair. It's not enough to simply think about the way the world works. You actually need to go and study the way the world works. The best philosophers don't just study philosophy. They study philosophy plus cognitive science, philosophy plus computer science plus economics, linguistics, moral psychology, constitutional law, plus anything other than just philosophy. As a general rule, your work in philosophy will be all but useless if you aren't deeply engaged with some field other than philosophy. And I think our department is a shining example and a testament to what philosophers can achieve by daring to cross the artificial boundaries that have become entrenched in academia. If only we could all be so bold. The second point I want to suggest to you is this: don't just think about philosophy, be a philosopher. Don't just study epistemology, which is the study of how we ought to form beliefs. Make an effort to form your beliefs according to the epistemic standards you espouse. Don't just study philosophy of law. Make an effort to ensure that the law reflects the principles you believe it ought to reflect. Don't just study morality and how to live a good life. Go and live a good life. If you're doing it right, in my view, philosophy should change everything about who you are. It should change what you eat. It should change what career path you choose to pursue. It should change where and how much you donate to charity. Just to give you an illustration of the disconnect between thought and action, consider that almost all of us, when asked, will say that we care deeply about donating to the most effective charities in the world. And yet almost none of us, when asked, can honestly say that we have made any effort to ensure that we are donating to the most effective charities in the world. And as a result, the average charity to which we donate is 1,000 times less effective than the best charities in existence today. The cognitive iron curtain that separates what we know we ought to do from what we in fact do is not just an abstract philosophical problem. It truly is responsible for an immense amount of suffering in the world. The bright side is that we can do a tremendous amount of good by tearing down the cognitive wall, separating reason from compassion, evidence from emotion, thought from action. Consider that as graduates of Tufts University, even those of us who don't come from particularly wealthy backgrounds. As graduates of Tufts University, we are in the top 1% of the world's population in terms of our expected net wealth. That is 30 times as wealthy as the global average. If we were to donate even 10% of our lifetime income to the most effective charities in the world, we would still be in the top 1% of the world's population. We would still be 27 times as wealthy as the global average, and we would be able to save the lives of 6 human beings every single year. To me, this isn't an option. This is an obligation. And I'm pleased to report that at least some Tufts students take this obligation extremely seriously. Over the past academic year, 5 of my peers have taken a pledge with an organization called Giving What We Can to donate 10% of their lifetime income to the world's top charities. One of them is in the audience graduating with us today. His name is Luke Saber. He doesn't come from a particularly wealthy background. He's not known as a particularly moral or selfless person because he's not interested in flaunting his virtue on social media or engaging in publicly visible acts of community service. In our freshman year, Luke lost his mom to cancer. And yet, he plans to donate 10% of his lifetime income to charities that work to fight malaria and extreme poverty rather than cancer, for the sole reason that these charities are more effective at improving and saving people's lives. This young man is a hero, and I'm proud to have had him as my best friend for the past 4 years. So, let me leave you on this note. It has fallen to us, the philosophers, the academics, the future leaders of the world, to help build the bridge that will one day span the chasm between our values and our actions. Don't just think about philosophy. Be a philosopher. Because philosophy isn't just something to be thought about. It's something to be lived. Thank you.